What's up guys, welcome back to the channel. My name is Cole, and in today's video I want to talk about one of the most versatile lures in bass fishing, and that is the soft plastic swim bait. Now there are many different ways that you can fish a swim bait, but in today's video I want to go over my top 7 favorite rigging methods, as well as talk about where each rigging method shines the most. Before we jump into the video, I want to go over the swim baits that we're going to be using for demonstration purposes. I've got 2 packs here of the 6 Sense Divine swim bait. I got a 4.4 inch here, a 3.8 inch version here, and then here in my right hand, I've got the 4.5 inch 6 Sense whale. These are all great swim bait options, and you can rig them all a multitude of ways, which we're about to go over, and I'm excited to share this process with y'all. If y'all are excited for today's episode, do me a favor, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel so you keep up all the future fishing content. But with all that being said, let's jump into the first rigging method, and that is going to be on an exposed jig head. This jig head in particular is my favorite one to rig on a swim bait. This is a 6 Sense Divine jig head. A couple reasons why I like this one. It's got a very heavy, stout hook. It has a nice screw lock bait keeper here. It's got a very realistic paint scheme with 3D eyes. And then one of my favorite features is that it has a flat keeled chin. This allows the bait to rest on the bottom flat like this and doesn't roll over. So this is a great option from 6 Sense, a great jig head you can put on any of your favorite swim baits. So we're gonna rig up the 4.4 inch Divine swim bait on this guy. And basically all you're going to do is you're just gonna thread the bait onto the hook up to the keeper and then screw it on. And that screw lock is gonna keep the bait in place for a very long time. You're gonna be saving a lot of money on baits. You don't have to worry about, retying and putting new baits on all the time. So what I like to do, I like to kind of like measure up from the top of the head to the bait and see where that hook point is gonna come out. And you can either, you can also trim up the top of your swim baits if you want to fit to size, but I usually leave the 4.4 just the way it is, and I might trim off just the very tip like I've done right there. Just a little bit so it mounts flush to the jig head. So let's slide this thing up the hook, and you wanna make sure it's centered and straight. The straighter you rig it, the better this thing is going to swim, but this keeled jig head kind of helps you out if you don't get it on there perfect. So there we go, we got it on the hook, have a little bit of a bend in the swim bait, and we're just gonna screw it onto the jig head all the way up to the top. It's gonna look really good. There we go. And there, my friends, is a perfectly rigged Divine swim bait on an open, exposed jig head. Now, where I'm gonna be throwing an open, exposed jig head the most is gonna be out in open water where I'm not, around a bunch of cover, where I'm gonna be mainly snagless. And I'm gonna be targeting fish that are on the bottom, that are just kind of creeping around on the bottom, or fish that are suspended. And what I love about the jig head is I can literally work anywhere in the water column from the top foot all the way down to the bottom, and I have an exposed hook, so when a fish gets it, you're gonna have a high hookup ratio. So anytime I can get away with an exposed hook, I'm gonna do it. So open water, not a ton of cover, and where there's fish on the bottom, suspended, or in the top, it's just a great bait to cover all those bait zones. So that was our first way to rig a soft plastic swim bait. Let's jump into the next option. We're gonna keep the jig head theme in mind with this guy. So this here is an Underspin jig head. This is a 6 Sense Divine Underspin, and it's basically the same concept. We have a jig head, a nice hook, screw lock keeper, but we have a blade on here. So we're gonna get extra flash with this guy. And a lot of times you're gonna swap to an Underspin when you have pressured fish. Maybe it's cold, or you throw these a lot in the wintertime, you have cold water. This particular Underspin, or most Underspins in general, are mounted with a lighter wired hook. So it's not as stiff, so you can throw those on spinning gear. And it's a great option when you have fish that are feeling a little bit finicky, or you just wanna add a little bit of flash. And a lot of times I like to swap to a smaller sized swim bait. So this is the 3.8 inch Divine swim bait. And we're gonna rig it on there the same way we rigged up the last swim bait on the bigger jig head without the blade. So we're just gonna kind of measure it up, see where the hook comes out, because you want it to go in, right the first time. Thread it onto the hook. Okay, we're up to the screw keeper. We're gonna screw the bait on to the keeper. And I know that this method is not as fast as it would be if you're just pushing it up on a jig head, but I'm telling you guys, the screw lock keeper is the deal. It is the way to go, and I feel like every bait from every manufacturer should have a screw lock keeper on it. It just makes so much sense to me. But there you have it, guys. There is the 3.8 inch Divine swim bait on an Underspin. Like I said, this is a great option for finesse applications, cold water, deep water, light line, spinning tackle. This is the one you should opt for. So my next favorite way to rig a soft plastic swim bait is on this guy right here. So this is a football free swinging jig head. This is the 6 Sense Core X jig head, And you're gonna wanna opt for this guy whenever you're wanting to cast your swim bait out there and maintain bottom contact for the whole duration of your cast. So maybe you have fish sitting on the bottom on some rocks or around a brush pile, and you're wanting to keep your bait down there so you got cover. Well, this is a weedless presentation. It has a little screw lock hook on there, and you're actually gonna rig the swim bait text posed on there, so you have a completely weedless presentation. You're able to come through all these snags on the bottom and maintain that bottom contact that fish want. So let's rig this guy up real quick. We got I usually throw the bigger size swim bait, so I've got the 4.4 inch Divine swim bait again. And again, we're just gonna screw this guy onto the little keeper here. The screw lock keeper is the deal. And then unlike the other ones, we have to rig this guy weedless. So let's stick the hook down in the hook slot, find where it comes out flat, and then we'll text pose it. And there we have a completely weedless bottom contact presentation. So this is the football swing head. The bait's gonna have freedom to move. It's got this little axis, little pivot point here, so you're gonna get a lot of realistic action, maintain that bottom contact, and stir up a lot of commotion on the bottom that bass are just not gonna be able to resist. So right now is a great time to throw a swing head when you have staging pre-spawn females around cover, and another great time to throw the swing head is in the heat of summer when you have bass that are hanging out near the bottom being sluggish. So anytime you would throw like a deep diving crankbait, if you're catching fish on a deep diving crankbait and they quit biting it, but you still see fish hanging out, put this swing head on there and run it through that same school of fish and see what happens. They will light this sucker up. So that's gonna wrap up all of our jig head type swim bait rigging methods. Let's jump into the next way that you can rig a soft plastic swim bait, and that is on this guy right here. So this is an unweighted screw lock weedless swim bait hook. And this rigging presentation is going to excel in heavy cover, maybe when you're wanting to fish the bait near the surface over submerged grass or through lily pads or through brush. You want to keep that bait high in the water column, but keep it weedless, and you don't want it to get like bogged down in the stuff. So again, we're gonna opt mainly for a larger size swim bait, 4 to 5 inches. This is the 4.4 inch swim bait. And again, it's got a screw lock keeper on there. We're just gonna stick that centering pin in there, screw it onto the hook. Super easy. Now, whenever you rig a swim bait this way and you fish it near the surface, you are bound to have some vicious topwater strikes. Okay, so we've got the screw lock in. See where the hook goes into the bait, where it comes out evenly and flush. Let's rig it on there. Text pose it, and boom. There we go. We have a completely weedless soft plastic swim bait presentation. That screw lock keeper is going to maintain that bait's durability. And like I said, you fish the thing near the surface, around the tops of the lily pads or around the grass, you're gonna have some vicious strikes. This is one of my favorite ways to rig a swim bait because a lot of the stuff I fish is heavy cover, and I just love that topwater strike. But let's take this hook out real quick and let's show you the next stop down, and that is going to be on this guy. So it's basically the exact same hook, but as you can see, it is keel-weighted, and that's gonna allow you to maybe make a longer cast. You're gonna be able to fish your bait a little bit further down in the water column, and I would say this is probably the most versatile swim bait hook that you can use because you can fish it down deep, you can fish it in the middle of the water, you can fish it up near the top, and you're gonna get a bunch of bites. So again, we'll just rig this thing up for demonstration purposes. Screw that baby onto the hook, just like that. And again, see where that hook comes out. It's very important. I can't stress it enough. You want your swim baits to be as straight as possible. And one thing that I really love, I'm gonna touch base on this real quick, about like the 6th Sense swim baits is that they come in this clam package. So you could rig your swim bait as straight as you want to, but if you get a pack of swim baits and the tail's bent, then you're just out of luck. You're not gonna have a swim bait that runs straight. But with these little clam packages, it makes sure that your baits are gonna be straight every time right out the pack. So there's the bait all rigged up. It looks perfect. I throw my swim baits like this a ton also. It's just an absolutely dynamite way to rig a soft plastic swim bait and catch a bunch of fish. So we've gone through 5 effective ways to rig a soft plastic swim bait so far. Let's jump into the final 2. This is another one of my favorites. It's like the last one, but with just a little bit of added flash. So this is an Owner flashy swimmer hook. These come in a lot of different sizes. This is a 5/0 hook. This is just a really versatile hook. And you're gonna opt for this one whenever maybe they're not biting the keel-weighted swim bait, maybe a bunch of bait fish in the area, you have a sunny day, and you just need a little bit of extra flash to entice an extra bite. And a lot of times, I'll just start with this guy. I'll start with the flash, and if it's too much for him, then I'll swap back down to just the regular unbladed keel-weighted swim bait hook. And one of my favorite style baits to throw on a flash swimmer is a swim bait with a little bit more bulk to it. So I really like this new bait here. This is the 6th Sense Whale. It's got these nice little glidey little pectoral fins here on it. It maintains stability. It's got a good head shake, a good tail kick, and it looks great on a flashy swimmer. So let me rig this guy on there, show you guys what it looks like. This bait is gonna be dynamite this spring. Haven't got to experiment with it too much just because it's a pretty new bait, but this spring, it's gonna get a lot of work in. The bait looks great in the water, and I know it's gonna catch a bunch of fish. So let's rig this guy up perfectly straight. I like this bait because it's a little bit transparent. I can see exactly where I'm sticking the hook in. Oh yeah, boy. Tell me that right there don't look good. That is gonna catch some big ones. Just slow roll this thing on a grass flat, you know, around some standing timber when you have some suspended fish. It's kind of like just any other keel-weighted swim bait hook, but just that little bit of flash can mean all the difference. There's been days where I've fished and I'm getting no bites, and then I swap to a hook with a blade on it, and it's just the difference of light and day. Just start knocking their lights out with a little blade on there. So anyways, there is rigging method number 6, and then that brings us to the final rigging method, and it's gonna be a little bit unlike these other ones we've talked about because it's gonna be showing you how you can utilize a soft plastic swim bait as a trailer, whether it be on a bait like this right here. This is a swim jig. This is the 6th Sense Divine swim jig, or on a spinner bait or a chatter bait. You can't go wrong with threading a swim bait on the back of your jigs as a trailer. I mean, some of these baits won't even work without a swim bait as a trailer. So we got this guy here. This is the Divine jig head. I love this jig head. It has the same jig head as the swim baits. So for all the reasons why I like the jig head without the skirt, I like for the jig head here on the jig. It's got that flat keeled chin, got a heavy hook, but it's got that screw lock keeper. And you know, that is so important when you're trying to skip a jig up underneath a bush or something and your plastic keeper keeps coming down. It's just super aggravating and annoying. But anyways, let's get this guy rigged up onto this swim jig. This is the 4.4 inch version. The 3.8 inch version works great also. You might want to trim this guy up a little bit, but we're gonna go for a big profile. Just get it straight. I feel like I just completely repeated myself so many times with talking about how straight you gotta get your swim baits on the hook, but I just can't stress it enough. If you're new to fishing a swim bait, getting it straight on the hook is the #1 priority. Everything else can come after that. Okay, we screw it on there. Watch out for all these little skirt tails. And that right there is a meaty swim jig presentation. I throw the 4.4 inch on the back of a swim jig all the time, and a swim jig accounts for most of my larger fish every year. You're gonna opt for the swim jig when you're fishing around heavy cover. This is gonna be the most weedless presentation you can get with, you know, more of this exposed hook, and it's just a great bait to throw in all situations. You can also drag this bait on the bottom. Like I said, it has that flat keeled chin. This is a great bait to slow roll on the bottom. And also this weed guard that comes stock on these jig heads is very weedless. I rarely have any issues with it snagging up. But anyways, that was the 7th and final rigging method of a soft plastic swim bait that I personally use all the time. There's probably a couple other ones that I've left off, but if you use one of these options that I talked about in today's video, you're gonna be doing something right. Let me know down in the comment section which is your favorite way to rig a soft plastic swim bait, and let me know if this video was helpful in any sort of way. I definitely do appreciate the feedback, and I appreciate y'all tuning in to watch this video. If you enjoyed it, do me a favor, hit the like button and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on any of our future fishing content. I'm Cole Harkin, and I will catch you on the next one. Bye guys.